ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतलेश्वराय भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिने नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्रीवासुदेव गौरवाणी। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम राम। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। टेक्स्ट 9। यदा मनोहृदय ग्रंथिरस्य कर्मानुबद्धो दृढ़ आश्लथेत तदा जनः संपरिवर्तते स्माद् मुक्तः परम यात्यति हाय हेतुम्। Translation: When the strong knot in the heart of a person implicated in material life due to the results of past action is slackened, one turns away from his attachment to home, wife, and children. In this way, one gives up the basic principle of illusion, I and mind, and becomes liberated. Thus, one goes to the transcendental world. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. When by associating with sadhus and engaging in devotional service, one is gradually freed from the material conception due to knowledge, practice, and detachment. The knot of attachment in the heart is slackened. Thus, one can get freed from conditional life and become eligible to return home back to Godhead. So, in the previous verse, we saw Maharaj Rishabdev was saying that this basic principle of attraction between male and female, that is the cause of bondage. And that is why we are naturally attached to our home, wife, children, and all the other paraphernalia associated with this material world. But now here, as Prabhupada is saying clearly, that when we associate with sadhus and engage in devotional service, this is the foolproof method, the foolproof process by which we can get rid of this attachment. Even though it is natural, even though it comes to us naturally, we will be freed from it due to knowledge, practice, and detachment. As Krishna also says, with knowledge and practice, one can control the uncontrolled mind. And that is the exact same thing, that the mind is uncontrolled because of this illusion of I and I. And once we are able to control our mind through knowledge and detachment, practice and detachment, then eventually this I and mind conception will also go away. And this is the main reason why we are stuck in this material. And thereby, when we are rid of this illusion, we will be transferred to the transcendental world. Hare Krishna. Someone like to add something to this? Okay, then we move on to the next verse. Would someone like to read 10 to 13? Hare Krishna.
I'm saying, I'll read Prabhu.
Prabhuji, your voice is not very clear.
Now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Hamse Guru Mai Bhaktyanu Vritya.
Hamse Guru Mai Bhaktyanu Vritya.
Vitrisnaya Bandva Titikshaya Cha.
Vitrisnaya Bandva Titikshaya Cha.
Sarvatra Jantur Vyasana Bhagatya.
Sarvatra Jantur Vyasana Bhagatya.
Jignasaya Tapaseha Nivritya.
Tapaseha Nivritya.
Atkarmabir Mattataya Chanityam.
Matkarmabir Mattataya Chanityam.
Addeva Sangat Gunakirtanan Me.
Addeva Sangat Gunakirtanan Me.
Nilvaira Samyo Pasema Pasa Vena Putra
Nirvaira Samyo Pashamena Putra
Dhasaya Deha Gehatma Buddhehe.
Jihasaya Dehatma Buddhi.
Adhyatma Yogena Vivikta Sevaya
Adhyatma Yogena Vivikta Sevaya.
Pranendriya Atma Vijayena Sadhya.
Pranendriyatma Vijayena Sadhya.
Sat Satya Brahmacharyanya Sasvat.
Sat Shraddhaya Brahmacharyena Shashvat.
Asampramadena Yamena Vacham.
Asampramadena Yamena Vacham.
Sarvatra Madbhava Vichakshanena
Sarvatra Madhava Vichakshanena.
Jnanena Vijnana Virajitena.
Jnanena Vijnana Virajitena.
Yogena Triti Udyama Sattva Yukto.
Yogena Dhrityudyama Sattva Yukto.
Lingam Vyapohe Kusalo Aham Akhyam.
Lingam Vyapohe Kushaloham Akhyam.
Aham Adhyam.
Translation and purport with divine grace. Translation. O my sons, you should accept a highly elevated Paramamsa, spiritual, advanced spiritual master. In this way, you should place your faith and love in me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You should detest sense gratification and tolerate the duality of pleasure and pain, which are like the seasonal changes of summer and winter. Try to realize the miserable condition of living entities, or miserable even in the higher planetary systems. Philosophically inquire about the truth, then undergo all kinds of austerities and penances for the sake of devotional service. Give up the endeavor for sense enjoyment and engage in the service of the Lord. Listen to discussions about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always associate with devotees. Chant about and glorify the Supreme Lord and look upon everyone equally on the spiritual platform. Give up enmity and subdue anger and lamentation. Abandon identifying the self with the body and the home and practice reading the revealed scriptures. Live in a secluded place and practice the process by which you can completely control your life, air, mind, and senses. Have full faith in the revealed scriptures, the Vedic literatures, and always observe celibacy. Perform your prescribed duties and avoid unnecessary talks. Always thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, acquire knowledge from the right source. Thus, practicing Bhakti Yoga, you will patiently and enthusiastically be elevated in knowledge and will be able to give up the false ego. Perfect by His divine grace for Prabhupada. These 4 verses, Vishnupadeva tells the son how they can be freed from the false identification arising from false ego and material conditional life. One gradually becomes liberated by practicing as mentioned above. All these prescribed methods enable one to give up the material body, lingam, vyapohe, and be situated in his original spiritual body. First of all, one has to accept bona fide spiritual master. This is advocated by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Sri Guru, Father Shreyaha. To be freed from the entanglement of the material world, one has to approach a spiritual master. The Guru, by questioning the spiritual master and by serving him, one can advance in spiritual life. When one engages in devotional service, naturally the attraction for personal comfort, for eating, sleeping, and dressing is reduced. By associating with the devotees, the spiritual standard is maintained. The word Mat Deva Sangat is very important. There are so many so-called religions devoted to the worship of various demigods. But here, good association means association with one who simply accepts Krishna as his worshipable deity. Another important item is Dvanda Titiksha. As long as one is situated in the material world, there must be pleasure and pain arising from the material body. As Krishna advises in the Bhagavad Gita, Kam Titikshava Bharata. One has to learn how to tolerate the temporary pains and pleasures in this material world. One must also be detached from his family and practice celibacy. Sex with one's wife, according to scriptural injunction, is also accepted as brahmacharya or celibacy. But illicit sex is opposed to religious principles and it hampers advancement in spiritual consciousness. Another important word is Vijnana Virajita. Everyone should be done very scientifically and consciously. One should be a realized soul. In this way, one can give up the entanglement of material bondage. As Sri Madhvacharya points out, the sum and substance of these four slokas is that one should refrain from acting out of desire for sense gratification and should instead always engage in the loving service, Lord's loving service. In other words, Bhakti Yoga is the acknowledged path of liberation. Srila Madhvacharya quotes from the Adhyatma. Atmano Vetam Karma Vartatya Vanya Karmanaha. Kamasya cha parityago nirtheti ahur uttamaha. One should perform activities only for the benefit of the soul. Any other activities should be given up. When a person is situated this way, he is said to be desireless. Actually, a living entity cannot be totally desireless. But when he desires the benefit of the soul, nothing else, he is said to be desireless. Spiritual knowledge is jnana vijnana samanvitam. When one is fully equipped with jnana and vijnana, he is perfect. Jnana means that one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu to be the Supreme Being. Vijnana refers to the activities that liberate one from ignorance of material existence. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 2.9.31, Jnanam param guhyam me yet vijnana samanvitam. Knowledge of the Supreme Lord is very confidential, and the supreme knowledge by which one understands Him furthers the liberation of all living entities. The knowledge is Vijnana, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4.9. Janma karma cha me divyam, evam yo venti tattvataha. Tyaktva deham punarjanma.
Then
This knowledge is Vijnana as confirmed Bhagavad Gita 4.9. Janma karma cha me divyam, evam yo venti tattvataha. Tyaktva deham punarjanma, naiti mam eti so Arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Hare Krishna. It's quite a long program. A lot of points placed both by Rishabhadeva and Prabhupada. So, Rishabhadeva is telling his sons, first, they should accept a highly elevated Paramahamsa thus as a spiritually advanced spiritual master. They should place the faith and love in me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is again pointing out that it is him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that has come as Rishabhadeva. They should detest sense gratification and tolerate the duality of pleasure and pain. The second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna himself says that one should tolerate the duality of everything that is dual, and pleasure and pain being dual, we have to tolerate, which are like seasonal changes. Now, one has to inquire about the truth and undergo all kinds of austerities and penances for the sake of devotional service. Basically, giving up endeavor for sense and enjoyment itself is an austerity and penance in today's day and age. We have read in Bhagavatam how in the earlier yugas, people used to go and perform severe penances to ask the Lord so that they can then further their devotional service. They would do penances to get boons from the Lord so that they can perfect their devotional service to the Lord. Whereas in today's world, it is very difficult for us to undergo all kinds of austerities. So giving up sense enjoyment itself is an austerity of this age. One has to constantly chant the names of the Lord and surrender to the Lord. This will bring one to the devotional platform. So chanting and glorifying the Supreme Lord and looking upon everyone equally. That itself brings us to a spiritual platform, and that is what is mentioned more and more for this age. So giving up enmity and subduing anger and lamentation. So as one slowly chants the names of the Lord and surrenders, one will slowly transcend from Tamogun to Rajogun to Sattvagun. One is situated in Sattvagunam. One would give up enmity, one would not be angry, and one would not lament for that which is not, that what one does not attain. So when one reaches this, one slowly will start abandoning and identifying the self with the body and practice reading the scriptures. Now again, for that day and age, Rishabhdeva is telling his sons, live in a secluded place and practice a process by which you can completely control your life, air, mind, and senses. Have full faith in the revealed scriptures. Now, again, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am the Vedas by which, and the Vedas by which I am known. So, we have to have full faith in the revealed scriptures, that the Vedas and the Vedic literatures help us reach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But in today's day and age, it's very difficult for us to follow. One, read, understand, practice, and fully follow everything that's given in the Vedas. So one has to follow the instructions given by one's spiritual master. Again, performing prescribed duties without attachment to the results, which again Krishna has told us in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Always thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and acquiring knowledge from the right source. The right source being the spiritual master. Thus, practicing Bhakti Yoga, you will patiently and enthusiastically be elevated in knowledge and be able to give up the false ego. Further, Prabhupada in his purport, he talks of, he is quoting Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Guru Padashrayaha. To be freed from entanglement, one has to approach a spiritual master. And by questioning with the spiritual master and serving him, one can advance in spiritual life. Like we know and we read about Prabhupada's, in Prabhupada's Leelamrit, what extent he went to fulfill the word, the instructions of his spiritual master. Endured heart attacks, lived among hippies, braved the cold, the weather, lack of food, and the kind not having good association of Vaishnavas, which he was getting here in India, all to ensure that he fulfilled the word of the spiritual master to spread the holy names of the Lord throughout the Western world. Now, that is the kind of faith and unflinching goal one should have to fulfill the words of the spiritual master. Then, associating with devotees, the spiritual standard is maintained. Another important item is Dvanda Titikshaha. As long as one is situated in the material world, there will be pleasure and pain. And Krishna advises again in the Bhagavad Gita that there would be duality, and one has to learn to live with duality in this world and transcend the duality that is there in the material world. So, again, Prabhupada is quoting Srila Madhvacharya and points out the sum and substance of all these four slokas, that one should perform activities only for benefit of the soul. If one is performing for benefit of any material desire, then that is of no use, and that lands up further and further binds us in karmic activities. Any other activity should be given up. When a person is situated this way, he is said to be desireless. Actually, a living entity cannot be totally desireless. But when he desires for the benefit of the soul, nothing else, then he is said to be desireless. Spiritual knowledge is jnana vijnana samanvitam. Jnana and vijnana. Jnana is understands Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vijnana refers to the activity that liberate one from ignorance of material existence. So, if one is situated both in jnana and vijnana, then one is fully equipped to understand that we are not this body, we are the soul, and knowledge of we then, through the grace of the spiritual master, get knowledge of the Supreme. Again, in chapter 15, the Lord says, the Purushottama Vidya, where it's a guhyam or secretive knowledge, which he tells to Arjuna, that this knowledge is very confidential. And by this knowledge, one understands him and furthers the liberation of all living entities. And finally, Prabhupada quotes Bhagavad Gita 4.9 that one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take birth again in this material world. Hare Krishna. Somebody like to add to that, please? Okay, we can go to the next verse. Somebody like to read? Hare Krishna. Would somebody else like to read 5.14?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I'll read text 14. Karma Shayam Hridaya Granthi Bandham
Karma Shayam
Avidya
Hridaya Granthi Bandham
Avidya Yasaditam Apramatta
Avidya Saditam Apramattah
Anena Yogena Yatho Padesham
Anena Yogena Yathopadesam
Samayag Vyapo Yo Parameta Yogat.
Samyak Vyapo Parameta Yogat.
Translation. As I have advised you, my dear sons, you should act accordingly. Be very careful. By these means, you will be freed from the ignorance of the desire for fruitive activity, and the knot of bondage in the heart will be completely severed. For further advancement, you should also give up the means. That is, you should not become attached to the process of liberation itself. Purport. The process of liberation is Brahma Jignasa, the search for the absolute truth. Generally, Brahma Jignasa is called Neti Neti, the process by which one analyzes existence to search out the absolute truth. This method continues as long as one is not situated in his spiritual life. Spiritual life is Brahma Bhuta, the self-realized state. In the words of Bhagavad Gita 18.54, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nashochati Nakanshati Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed to every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. The idea is to enter into the Parabhakti, the transcendental devotional service of the Supreme Lord. To attain this, one must analyze one's existence. But when one is actually engaged in devotional service, he should not bother seeking out knowledge. By simply engaging in devotional service undeviatingly, one will always remain in the liberated condition. Mam chayo vyabhicharinam bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Bhagavad Gita 14.26. The unflinching execution of devotional service is in itself Brahma Bhuta. Another important feature in this connection is Anena Yogena Yathopadesham. The instructions received from the spiritual master must be followed immediately. One should not deviate from or surpass the instructions of the spiritual master. One should not be simply intent on consulting books, but one should simultaneously execute the spiritual master's order. Yathopadesham. Mystic power should be achieved to enable one to give up the material conception. But when one actually engages in devotional service, one does not need to practice the mystic yoga system. The point is that one can give up the practice of yoga, but devotional service cannot be given up. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7.10, Atma Ramas Chamunayo Nirvrantha api urukrame kurvanti ahe tukim bhaktim itham bhuta guno hari. Even those who are liberated, Atma Ram, must always engage in devotional service. One may give up the practice of yoga when one is self-realized, but at no stage one can give up devotional service. All other activities for self-realization, including yoga and philosophical speculation, may be given up, but devotional service must be retained at all times. Hare Krishna. So here, actually, Rishabdev is explaining, and especially Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, which are the various means by which we can attain self-realization. And so, as we know, it is Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and finally Bhakti Yoga. So, these other methods, like in Jnana Yoga, it is mainly neti. We are trying to gain. So, in all the other processes, that is Karma Yoga, mainly Prabhupada is mentioning here about Jnana Yoga and Hatha Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. So now these two processes, in that, what is the basic difference in these processes as compared to Bhakti Yoga? Like in Bhakti Yoga, we are watering the root of the tree. We know exactly the root of the tree is nourishing the whole tree, and we know where it is. We know where to find it, and we are watering the root. So we already know the conclusion. We know that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord. We are his eternal part and parcels. And we need to develop the connection or the relationship that we have lost with the Supreme Lord. And we are trying to establish that. So we already know what the goal is, and we know the process how to do it. But these other processes, okay, the goal is known in the sense that there is an absolute truth which is beyond this material world. That is the only thing which is known, but there is no clarity about that. So by the different processes and by one's own endeavor, these practitioners are trying to find out what is that absolute truth. So a lot is depending upon their own intelligence and own endeavor. Whereas in Bhakti Yoga, we are, as it is said, that we are practicing Bhakti Yoga we should be practicing it under a bona fide spiritual master. So it's not that we are doing anything whimsically. We know the conclusions of the scriptures, and this process is explained, and we are guided through the process by a spiritual master. So our endeavor is also required over here, but we do not need to stress our intelligence to find out how should I do it or where will I land. We already know everything. So that is why this Bhakti Yoga that way becomes simple, because we know the process properly and we know where we are heading. But the other processes, the exact end point is not known. Yes, up to liberation they can go, but what beyond that? So because of that, there is a danger that, the people who are practicing these processes, they can get attached to the process itself and to the byproducts of the process. Like mystic yoga can give a lot of siddhis. So because the end point is not really well known, okay, these people can become attached to this, and that gives a lot of puja la pratishtha and can be totally deviated. But yes, if somebody is able to achieve liberation and then comes in contact with a devotee, then it becomes much more simpler to attain the Supreme Lord by following these processes also. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Kindly add more points if anyone wants to.
One thing I found interesting in the translation, as I adduce you, my dear sons, you should act accordingly. Rishabhadev is telling his sons to be very careful. So, by this means, you will be freed from ignorance or desire of good work. Now, he is telling them to be careful in the practice because it is difficult to practice. So, that is not very clear, but he is telling them it's not so easy. So, they have to be careful in the practice of what he is advising them. That I found to be a interesting note in this. Anybody else would like to add to that, please?
Hare Krishna. I was thinking about this end of the purport where there is about this that one can give up the process of yoga, but nobody shouldn't give up the devotional service. So that, of course, there was this point that you even this yoga process needs to given up, like this kind. If you are desiring something out of it, then of course that you should also give up ultimately. But the point also that in Bhakti Yoga, then all the yoga processes are combined. Then you will automatically kind of give up everything else when you go deeper in the Bhakti. So I don't know, just this point that one may give up the practice of yoga when one is self-realized. Yeah, so that this means that this is just like a byproduct of devotional service, and you can naturally give up this practice of yoga also.
Go ahead. Somebody like to read verse 15?
Krishna, would someone like to read?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Sure,
Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna Ji. Trashcha Shishyancha Nipro Guruvar Malaloka Kamo Madan Anugrahat Itham Vimanyur Anushishyad Tajgyan Na Yojayet Karamsu Karamamurhan Kam kam yojaye yojayan kam yojayan manu jortham labhet
Tam yojayan manujor.
nipat yanshat nipat yanshat darsham hi grate.
Nipatayan
Translation. If one is serious about going back to Godhead, he must consider the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the summum bonum, and the chief aim of life. If he is a father instructing his sons, a spiritual master instructing his disciples, or a king instructing the citizens, he must instruct them as I have advised. Without being angry, he should continue giving instructions, even if his disciple, son, citizen is sometimes unable to follow his order. Ignorant people who engage in pious and impious activities should be engaged in devotional service by all means. They should always avoid fructive activities. If one puts into the bondage of karmic activity, his disciple, son or citizen who is bereft of transcendental vision, how will one profit? It is like leading a blind man to dark well and causing him to fall in. Purport, it is stated in Bhagavad Gita 3.26, Na buddhi bhedam janayed agnanam karma sanginam joshayat sarva karmani vidvan yukte samacharan. Let not the wise disrupt the minds of the ignorant who are attracted to fructive action. They should be encouraged not to refrain from work, but to work in the spirit of devotion. Hare Krishna ji. So here, Prabhupada ji is we have heard this sentence a couple of times from Prabhupada ji. This instruction where Prabhupada ji is saying when we are preaching, we should be smart to preach, understanding where the disciple is, which stage, what instruction to give to who, considering the stage. We can't give instruction to a neophyte saying, you might want to look into renunciation. So a neophyte would tomorrow probably leave the devotion or think of not coming to us. So here, what I'm trying to get is, Rishabh Devji is helping us understand that, our aim is back to Godhead. Yes. And we must consider it cannot be fulfilled without mercy of Summum Bonum, which is the chief aim of our life. That we should consider anything that we do in bhakti or anything that we do, Krishna is there always. There was a lecture I was listening to Keshavan Prabhuji yesterday, and he was saying every single second Krishna is interfering in our lives. We just need to see how he's interacting with us. So even if a little action in bhakti, even just holding the mala and trying to, serve him through chanting, it cannot be done without his mercy. So everything that we are doing is with his mercy and cannot be fulfilled without his mercy. And the other instruction that Prabhupada ji is giving here is again, doing the action but not getting attached to the results. Is the way Rishabh ji was saying, without being angry, we should continue to give instructions. Like the job of a preacher or a father or a guru or a king is to provide proper guidance to the disciple, to the citizens or to the followers, and help them engage into devotional service. The situation might be that they might not be able to follow the instructions right away, and that's the result. They might not be able to act right away, follow it. So we should not be getting angry. Our job is to show them the right path and leave it on Krishna. Guide them throughout and leave it on Krishna. We cannot be getting angry. Oh, I have given that instruction and you're unable to follow, so out you go. That won't be feasible. Our job as a preacher or as a father or mother or king or whatever is to bring our people in devotional service. And Varnashram Dharma is sets perfectly well here. where Rishabh Dev Ji is saying, you know, by all means, people should be engaged in devotional service. And at no stage we are being told, you know, take people out of what they're doing and bring them to devotional service. Devotional service is literally let them do what they are doing. Somehow it's bhakti yoga. Yoga is union. Attach Krishna to what they are doing. That way, eventually, they will be renounced from the fructive activities that they were doing just for their own sense gratification in the past. And if we do not do so, like if we do not try to bring, say, our attached ones or our loved ones into devotional service, and we let them go with the karmic activity of just enjoying our own senses, the way we see today, the way kings are today or leaders are today, they wanted to enjoy their own senses. And if we end up following them, there will be blind leading and blind, and we'll be falling into a dark well of sense gratification where there is no coming out. Also, another instruction that Krishna is giving here using, Prabhupada Ji is giving here using 3.26 is especially for those, you know, if we are so much into fructive action, we should know the audience that we are preaching. If we are so much into fructive action, our goal is again to unite their actions in Krishna consciousness. It's just the consciousness behind the action need to change. The action might or will stay the same. It's just what is the thinking behind the action would change. And that's what a guru would do to the disciple. It's the consciousness behind the actions would change. That's please go ahead and explain further if anybody or any comments. Please go ahead, Ji.
Hare Krishna. I would like to add that I feel that here we need to refrain from a sense of doership. Whenever we are preaching, we should not feel that I am the one who is responsible for getting this particular Jivatma into devotion. We are just doing the job of a messenger. We are just trying to give the message, and we should not be attached to the results of it. Finally, we are nothing, and everything is in the hands of the Supreme Lord and the Jivatma whom we are preaching to. So it is actually the relation between them. We just need to give the message and move forward without being attached. We tend to get angry because of the attachment. When we are attached to the results that I have been preaching, I have been cultivating this person for a long time. How is it that he's not taking up? How is it not doing what I have told? So these are all signs of attachment and sense of like doership. Like we feel we are the doers and we are getting the person into the. So that is the need. That is the thing that we need to refrain from. In one of the lectures, I have heard that we should follow 3 principles while preaching. One thing is try to develop, an environment where the person can develop faith if there is none, and where there is little faith, we should try to give knowledge, and the knowledge should be in accordance to the level of faith. Should not be given too much knowledge that can overwhelm a person and cause him to leave devotion. So these are the principles if we follow, and if we be detached from the activity, just acting like a messenger, then I think we can do justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Very nicely explained and very nice points. Should we pause here? Anybody would like to add something, or should we pause?
We can pause.
ठीक है प्रभु जी. So we'll pause here. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ji ki jai. Thank you so much to all the devotees. Hare Krishna Ji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam. Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.